Welcome back to episode 2 of Introduction into Canning. Today we're going to discuss the difference between our water bath canners and our pressure canners, what foods need to be water bathed, what foods need to be pressure canned, and the difference between a pressure cooker and a pressure canner. Now let's get the important thing out of the way first. A pressure cooker cannot be used as a pressure canner. There are big differences between these two. Now the canner allows you to adjust not only the temperature inside of it, but the pressure as well. Pressure cookers do not allow you to do this. Your pressure cooker is meant to cook the food only. A pressure canner can cook the food like a pressure cooker and can safely can it, creating a sterile environment allowing for shelf-stable foods. Please do not use a pressure cooker in place of a pressure canner. With that, let's take a look at some of our canners here. Let's start with our water bath canner. Now, the best thing about a water bath canner is you can use any canner you have in your house that has a lid, so long as there is enough space for at least 2 inches of water above the jars that you are canning. The next important thing is that you have to have something down in the bottom of the canner to raise the jars off of the bottom. And the reason for that is you don't want that direct heat coming up from your eye of your stove hitting the glass, because that will cause your jars to shatter. If you don't have any kind of fancy racks or anything that can fit inside of yours, you can easily just take a towel and put that down in there. Obviously a lot better than this, but you get the gist of it, and allow your jars to rest on that. Now, when it comes to the types of foods that can be water bath canned, it's only going to be foods that are high in sugar, high in salt, or high in acid. So foods like jams and jellies, any fruits or vegetables you plan on pickling, spaghetti sauces and chilies, or even fermented foods. Now, the reason we can get away with water bath canning these foods and not pressure canning is because of the type of bacteria that is found in the food itself. Certain bacteria cannot thrive in acidic or sugary or salty conditions. Those bacteria also die off at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the temperature of boiling water. Now, this is where your elevation comes into play when you're doing water bath canning. Water boils at different temperatures depending on the elevation. For every 500 feet above sea level, the temperature drops 1 degree in order to boil. So at sea level, temperature boils at 212 degrees. But at 500 feet above sea level, it's 211. This is why elevation plays an important part, because we can't change the temperature of boiling water where we live, but we can change the time. So where I live, water boils at roughly 206 degrees. Well, if the bacteria has to hit 212 in order to die, how am I supposed to water bath can? That's easy. You extend the time by 10 minutes, at least for me. This is where that ball canning book comes into play. I know it all sounds very confusing, but that is why these charts exist. So as you can see, at 1,000 to 3,000 feet, you have to increase your time by 5 minutes. From 3,000 to 6,000, you have to increase 10, and so on and so forth. This is what's going to ensure that the bacteria inside your water bath canned foods are completely destroyed, creating a sterile environment, allowing your food to sit safely on a shelf without the need for refrigeration. Now let's look at some of those pressure canners. This is a Presto 23 quart. This is an All-American 21 quart. Both canners hold 7 quarts and 19 pints, but there are a couple of major differences between these two brands. Besides the outside locking mechanisms, there are a couple of other features that are completely different. For example, the All-American, its weight is all in one. Your 5, your 10, and your 15-pound weight are all on the same device. Whereas with the Presto, you have to purchase them individually. I have this attached because I constantly kept putting it down and losing it. This is a 15-pound weight. If I needed the 10 or the 5, I would have to purchase them separately. Another major difference is going to be your gauges. As you can see on the All-American, it not only tells you where your PSI is, which are these numbers 5, 10, 15, 20, it also tells you what the temperature is based on the PSI that you're at. The Presto, on the other hand, only gives you the PSI. It does not give you any temperature. Another major difference are the insides of the lids. So on the All-American, there is not a seal whatsoever. You'll never need to replace anything. You just take a little bit of oil and put it around the outside, which allows it to sit in a little bit smoother inside the canner. Versus the Presto that has this inner seal. Now this rubber seal will need to be replaced about once a year, depending on how frequently that you are canning. It also needs to have a little bit of oil put on it that keeps it pliable and stops it from drying out and disintegrating quicker. Both canners have accessories that you can purchase separately. So for the Presto, if your gauge fails, your overpressure valve fails, or you need to replace it, the seal, the handles, anything like that, you can purchase them separately. Same thing goes with the All-American. Anything that you need to purchase from them, all the parts and pieces can be purchased separately if you need to replace them. The other major difference, and this one was huge when it came for me deciding which one to get first, is the price tag. So your All-American here is $420. The Presto is $130. On the Presto's website, they claim that their product is made from a warp-resistant aluminum. Now, I can guarantee you that it is not warp-resistant. I have had this one for about 4 years, and the bottom has warped out. On top of that, pitting has started occurring inside. And now, it's hard to see on camera, these little pitted areas, but they are really deep, and as thin of aluminum as this is, it kind of makes me not want to use it anymore. Now this canner on its own, without the lid or any accessories, weighs 6.8 pounds. The All-American, on the other hand, sits flat on the surface. Again, with the Presto, it has I don't know if I can zoom in, you can see that bottom, whereas the All-American sits completely flat. This is also a much thicker gauge of aluminum, weighing in at 13.6 pounds without the lid. Now, I'm not bashing Presto whatsoever. Their canner has been absolutely amazing for me in the 4 years that I've had it, but I was hoping for a much longer lifespan. So here's hoping that the All-American is going to live up to the hype and the price tag, and we'll see how long this one lasts. Now, when it comes to the types of foods that you can pressure can, this is going to be anything from your meats and your vegetables, corns, potatoes, your broth, any kind of soups or stews. These are going to be beans, you name it. Now these foods, unlike our water bath can foods, are low in sodium, low in sugar, and low in acid, which means that they are going to contain more bacteria of a different variety, including this guy. This is what's going to lead to botulism, and we will cover botulism in another video. This bacteria is in everything, so don't freak out. It's in the soil that we walk around on and we plant our foods in. It's in our food, it's in our drinking water. The reason we don't get sick is because we cook our food, because we treat our water, and because we follow safe canning practices. So in order to kill these bacteria, you have to go higher in temperature than boiling water could ever reach. This is why we use the pressure canner. A pressure canner creates an environment that raises the temperature higher than 240 degrees over a certain amount of time, depending on what you're canning. That is going to kill absolutely everything inside of it, creating a sterile environment. In the next episode, we'll actually start canning some food, and I'll walk you through step by step everything that you're going to need to know for water bath and pressure canning. We'll see you in the next video.